Hi there, my name's Dr. Leigh Golding. I'm a sports and exercise medicine physician at Orthosports, and I work in the Randwick rooms. And I was also recently the doctor for the Australian cricket team on their trip to England during this global pandemic. So this is just going to be a short talk about some of the experiences I had in undertaking this tour. Hopefully you find it interesting. It was a unique tour, and it actually took a lot of planning. It was uncertain it was going to go ahead for a long period, and in the lead up, a lot of our planning involved talking to the players, running formal surveys, and actually finding out what worries and concerns they had about the dangers of travelling during these times. We provided online education sessions about what a biosecure hub would look like, but also on safe PPE use and the logistics of getting around travel safely on a trip like this. The pre-tour isolation requirements varied quite significantly depending on what state the players and the tour group were living in. But for example, those of us that were living in New South Wales were required to self-isolate for 14 days prior to travel and to have swabs on day 14, day 7, and day 3 before we travelled, just to make sure that there was no risk that any of us were carrying COVID on the plane. We also asked everyone to undertake daily symptom monitoring, and we devised a custom app that allowed everyone to put in their temperatures in the morning, and also to mark their symptoms and whether they had any symptoms before they left their rooms each day. We performed household screening of all the households of the players just to make sure that there were no high-risk individuals joining our bubble, amongst a lot of other tasks that we kind of did over a period of about 6 to 8 weeks before the tour began. The travel and the flying was a particularly surreal experience. We had to organise private charters from the high-risk states, so from private planes from Sydney and from Melbourne, in order to join the rest of the group. And just traversing through the airports, although they were very quiet, we considered those high-risk environments and had the whole party wearing masks, gloves, and moving with extreme caution and good physical distancing and sanitising everything, essentially. We also asked for a private plane to fly to England, just to minimise the risk of exposure to COVID while on the flight. And something that we had to think about, was organising swabs and self-isolation for the flight crew. Prior to departure, they'd flown in from France, and so it fell on the medical team to organise all of that. On board, it was a pretty different experience too. The crew had very minimal interaction with us, as per our request, and the crew wore face shields, masks, and gloves throughout the whole service. The playing group and the staff group were also required to wear masks for the whole duration of this long sort of 24-hour flight, which was an uncomfortable experience for some of them, but they got through it. When we got to England, the biosecure hub that the English Cricket Board had set up was really well thought through and sort of immediately obvious to anyone that was in it. No one was allowed to leave the biosecure hub at any point during the 6-week tour, and it was sort of very secure and well locked down. When we arrived, we all had our temperatures checked, and we were given a Bluetooth geolocation tag that essentially monitored our whereabouts at any point during the hub, and also monitored our contacts with one another so that contact tracing could be performed later if necessary. As I say, the whole hub was set up really well, and we were required to wear masks at all times when indoors, and also to physically distance at all times, essentially as much as possible during the whole 6 weeks of our travel there. The staff were divided into having various zoning access, so the staff that we immediately came into contact with were members of Zone 1, and then you had Zone 2 and 3 towards the peripheries, and that was designed so that if one person did contract COVID, then it wouldn't sort of immediately require the whole operation to self-isolate, and that worked for the most part quite well. The furniture around the hub and the whole hub design was set up so that it was really easy to sit down and to maintain these physical distances from each other and from staff members at all times. And on the whole, it actually worked really well. Both the staff members in these hubs and the playing groups and the officials and everyone that was involved was swabbed for COVID every 4 to 5 days throughout the whole stay. So that was a large number of swabs across the whole tour, which thankfully for all of us came back negative. We weren't allowed to leave the bubble, as I say, but we were well looked after in these hubs. They had games rooms and entertainment rooms, and in Southampton at the Ageas Bowl, we did actually have access to a local golf course, which we were able to make safe and give the players and the staff members access to a bit of golf from time to time, which was much appreciated. The training and matches were quite different too. In terms of the training, we had a few different training protocols. We had a one skin, one ball policy, so that you could only handle the ball that you attended and took to training. And for matches, there were a whole number of different rules. The ICC introduced a rule where no player was allowed to apply saliva to the balls, and if any batsman hit a ball up into the stands, then the fielding team had to go and retrieve that ball themselves. They weren't allowed to have it thrown to them by any member of the crew or the ground staff. The seating arrangements in the changing rooms also dictated physical distancing, and as such we had limits to the occupancy of the changing rooms. So no full team could be in any one changing room at any one time, which meant that we weren't able to have team talks and a lot of the things you kind of take for granted when you're on in an elite tour like this. For those of you that follow it, you'll know that we ended up winning the ODI series, and it was really a great end to what was a great and a terrific tour, really. It wasn't over for all of us at that point, though. Those players that were playing in the IPL went on to fly to Dubai, and the rest of us got back on a plane and went straight back to South Australia, where we quarantined for 2 weeks in the Adelaide Oval Hotel, which was recently opened. That was actually a really good experience. We were very well looked after by the Adelaide Oval Hotel staff, and the players got to actually experience training every day via some exemptions that were kindly granted. And I think everyone coped really well with that, and I have no doubt they would happily do it again if the time came calling. In summary, a lot of work and planning went into a tour like this, but on the whole it was a great success, and it returned Australian international cricket to all of our television screens, and I was very proud to be involved with it. Thanks very much.